Camila Reyes thought her date with millionaire Adrian Al Maktoum was a dream, until a luxury yacht in Miami turned into a trap she had to escape to survive. Camila Reyes had built her life in Miami through discipline and quiet determination. She had arrived from the Philippines with limited resources, carrying little more than experience in hospitality work and a strong sense of responsibility. Over time, she secured a position at a luxury hotel in one of the city's busiest districts. The job was demanding, requiring long hours and constant attention to detail, but it offered stability. For Camila, that stability meant everything. Her routine rarely changed. Early mornings, long shifts, and late evenings became the structure of her life. She avoided distractions, focused on her work, and kept her social circle small. Trust was something she did not give easily, especially in a city where appearances often hid deeper realities. She had seen enough to know that not everything presented as luxury was safe. That caution defined her, until the night she met Adrian Al Maktoum. He arrived at the hotel with a presence that was impossible to ignore. Surrounded by security and accompanied by well-dressed associates, he carried the kind of quiet authority that came from wealth and influence. His check-in process was handled with extra care, as staff were instructed to maintain privacy and efficiency. Camila was assigned to assist briefly, ensuring that everything met the high standards expected by a guest of his status. The interaction was short but noticeable. Adrian observed everything with precision. His attention to detail matched the environment he had entered, and his calm demeanor made him appear controlled and composed. There was nothing openly suspicious about him. Instead, he presented himself as someone used to being in command of every situation. For Camila, it was just another interaction at first, but within days something unexpected happened. Adrian found a way to contact her outside the hotel. The message was simple and direct, expressing interest in meeting her in a setting unrelated to her work. The approach was careful, avoiding anything that might seem inappropriate or forced. It was enough to make her pause. Camila hesitated. She had always kept a clear boundary between her professional life and personal interactions, especially with high-profile guests. Crossing that line carried risks she understood well. But curiosity began to challenge that caution. Adrian's approach had been respectful, and there was nothing in his behavior that suggested immediate danger. After considering her options, she agreed to meet him. Their first meeting took place in a public setting, surrounded by people and activity. The environment felt safe, and Adrian maintained the same composed personality he had shown at the hotel. He spoke with confidence, presented himself as a successful businessman, and demonstrated an awareness of how to make others feel at ease. Camila remained observant. She paid attention to details, his timing, his behavior, the way he interacted with others around them. Everything seemed consistent. There were no clear signs of deception, no immediate red flags that would justify her initial hesitation. Over time, her guarded attitude began to soften. Their meetings continued, each one reinforcing the same impression. High-end restaurants, exclusive lounges, and carefully chosen locations created an atmosphere that felt controlled and secure. Adrian appeared to understand exactly how to maintain that balance, offering enough attention to build trust without crossing into pressure. Then came the invitation that shifted everything. A private outing on a luxury yacht, presented as a quiet escape from the crowded city. The idea was framed as simple and relaxing, a continuation of the same controlled experiences she had already accepted. There was nothing obvious to suggest risk. But beneath that surface, something was already being set in motion. Camila agreed, unaware that this decision would take her into a situation where control would no longer belong to her. The yacht was waiting at a private marina, far from the crowded docks Camila was used to seeing. As she arrived, the first thing she noticed was how quiet the area felt. There were no tourists, no noise, and no visible activity beyond a small number of crew members preparing the vessel. Everything seemed organized and controlled, with security positioned discreetly around the entrance. Adrian was already there, standing near the boarding point. His presence carried the same calm confidence, but now it felt different in this setting. Away from the public spaces where they had previously met, his control over the environment was more visible. The yacht itself was larger than Camila had expected, designed with luxury in mind but also with clear boundaries between accessible and restricted areas. As they boarded, the distance from the city became immediate. The yacht moved smoothly away from the marina, leaving behind the skyline that had always given Camila a sense of direction. At first, the experience matched what she had been told. The setting was calm, the ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, and the atmosphere appeared relaxed. For a short time, it felt like nothing more than an exclusive outing. But that feeling did not last. As the yacht moved farther from shore, subtle changes began to take shape. The crew, who had initially been visible and attentive, became less present. Their movements were limited, and they avoided unnecessary interaction. The number of people on board felt smaller than expected, and the silence that replaced normal activity created an uneasy atmosphere. Camila began to notice restrictions. Certain sections of the yacht were clearly off-limits. Doors remained closed, and access points were monitored without explanation. When she moved through the open areas, she could feel that her path was being quietly controlled. It was not direct or forceful, but it was enough to make her aware that she was not free to go wherever she wanted. Her phone became the next concern. At first, the signal weakened gradually, something that could be explained by distance from land. But as time passed, it disappeared almost entirely. Attempts to reconnect failed, leaving her without any reliable way to contact anyone outside the yacht. The realization settled in slowly but firmly. She was completely isolated. Adrian's behavior also began to shift. The relaxed and engaging presence he had shown during their earlier meetings was replaced by something more distant. He spent less time engaging directly and more time focused on activities that did not include her. His movements seemed purposeful, as if he was managing something behind the scenes. Camila's instincts returned quickly. The caution she had lowered during their previous meetings came back stronger than before. She began observing everything more carefully: the timing of crew movements, the layout of the yacht, and the way certain areas were consistently avoided or secured. Each detail added to a growing sense that the situation was not as simple as it had been presented. Time felt different on the water. Without clear reference points, the hours blended together. The absence of communication and the controlled environment made it difficult to measure how far they had traveled or how long they had been away from shore. The yacht continued moving steadily, with no indication of returning anytime soon. By the time the reality fully settled in, Camila understood one thing clearly. She was no longer part of a planned outing. She was inside an environment where every detail was controlled by someone else, and leaving would not be as simple as she had expected. Camila understood that panic would only make her situation worse. The moment she accepted that she was no longer in control of her surroundings, she shifted her focus entirely. Instead of reacting, she began observing. Every movement, every detail, every routine on the yacht became important. If there was a way out, it would come from understanding how everything around her worked. She started with the layout. The yacht was designed to appear open and luxurious, but beneath that surface, it was structured with clear boundaries. Certain corridors led to restricted sections, marked not by signs, but by subtle changes in lighting, locked doors, and the presence of security. Camila memorized the accessible paths first, moving through them naturally to avoid suspicion. Each time she walked through a space, she noted exits, corners, and blind spots. Next, she focused on the crew. There were fewer people on board than expected for a vessel of that size. Those who were present followed strict routines. Their movements were efficient, rarely overlapping, and almost never casual. They avoided unnecessary eye contact and limited their interactions to what was required. It was clear they were operating under instructions that emphasized control and minimal exposure. Timing became her most valuable tool. Camila began tracking the rhythm of the yacht's activity. Certain hours were quieter than others. During these periods, crew movement slowed, and attention shifted away from monitoring the open areas. These patterns repeated with consistency, giving her small windows where observation could happen without interference. As her confidence grew, she extended her movements carefully. One evening, during a quieter period, She moved closer to one of the restricted sections she had been watching. The door was secured, but not entirely sealed. A slight gap allowed her to see inside when the lighting shifted. What she glimpsed was enough to confirm her suspicions. The area was not part of a leisure vessel. Inside were equipment cases, communication devices, and documents stored in a way that suggested active use rather than storage. The organization was precise, and everything appeared to be part of a larger system. This was not random or temporary. It was structured and ongoing. Camila waited for another opportunity. When it came, she moved further. Using a moment when nearby crew members were occupied, she entered the edge of the restricted area. Her movements were slow and controlled, guided by everything she had already learned. She avoided touching anything unnecessarily, focusing only on what she could observe and remember. That was when she found the files. They were stored within a secured compartment partially open, as if recently accessed. Financial documents, coded entries, and transaction records were visible. Even without full context, the scale of the information was clear. These were not personal records. They pointed toward operations that extended far beyond the yacht itself. She also noticed digital devices connected to encrypted systems. Screens displayed data that changed rapidly, suggesting active communication or monitoring. The presence of such systems confirmed that the yacht was being used for something far more complex than a private getaway. Camila realized something critical. Her presence on the yacht was not accidental. Whether she had been brought there as part of a plan or simply as an opportunity, she was now inside a controlled environment tied to activities that could not risk exposure. That made her situation far more dangerous than she had initially thought. But it also gave her something she needed: understanding. She now knew that escaping was not just about leaving the yacht. It was about doing so without triggering a response that could stop her. And for that, she needed to be precise, patient, and ready for the moment when everything aligned. Camila knew that understanding the situation was only the first step. The real challenge was leaving the yacht without alerting anyone. By now, she had gathered enough information to know that any sudden or careless move could immediately put her at risk. The environment was controlled, and even small disruptions could be noticed. She began planning carefully. Every detail mattered. She reviewed the patterns she had been observing, the quiet hours, the reduced crew presence, and the moments when attention shifted toward operational tasks. These small windows of opportunity were limited, but they were consistent enough to be used if timed correctly. Her plan had two parts. First, she needed to secure the information she had found. Second, she needed to find a way off the yacht or establish contact with someone outside. Both steps had to be executed without drawing attention. Camila returned to the restricted area during another low-activity period. This time, she moved with more purpose. She had already memorized the layout and knew where the files and devices were located. Instead of simply observing, she focused on collecting what she could. Using a small personal device, she copied portions of the digital data and took quick images of key documents. She avoided taking too much, knowing that missing files could raise suspicion. Every second felt longer than it was. She worked quickly, her attention divided between the task and the possibility of being discovered. Once she had enough, she secured the data carefully, storing it in a way that could not be easily traced back to her. The information was now her only leverage if she managed to get off the yacht. The second part of her plan was more difficult. Leaving the yacht in open water was not an option. She needed a moment when the vessel was close enough to land or another point of contact. From her observations, she knew that the yacht occasionally slowed or changed direction for operational reasons. These moments created brief opportunities where control was less rigid. She waited. Time passed slowly, each hour increasing the pressure. The environment remained tense, and subtle changes in crew behavior suggested that operations were ongoing. Camila stayed within her routine, avoiding anything that might make her stand out. She needed to remain invisible until the right moment appeared. That moment finally came. The yacht reduced speed as it approached a secondary docking area, a location far less active than the main marina. Crew members became focused on navigation and coordination, shifting their attention away from internal monitoring. For the first time, the control she had felt since boarding began to weaken. Camila moved immediately. She followed the path she had already mapped out, staying within areas she knew were less observed during these transitions. Her movements were steady, controlled, and deliberate. There was no room for hesitation. Each step brought her closer to a potential exit. The risk was at its highest. Any mistake could draw attention, and once noticed, she would have no way to escape. But the same structure that had kept her contained was now creating the opportunity she needed. As she reached the outer section of the yacht, she focused on the final step. Everything she had done, the observation, the planning, the data collection, had led to this moment. There would not be another chance like it. Camila did not hesitate when the opportunity appeared. The yacht had slowed just enough for controlled movement near the secondary docking area, and the crew's attention was divided between navigation and coordination. For the first time since she had boarded, the structure that had kept everything tightly controlled showed a gap. She moved through it. Her steps were measured and precise, following the exact route she had planned in her mind. Every turn, every shadow, every blind spot had already been memorized. She stayed low and out of direct lines of sight, keeping her movements aligned with the natural flow of activity around her. The sounds of the crew working covered the subtle noise of her movement. Reaching the outer deck changed everything. The open air brought a sense of reality back to her, but it also reminded her how exposed she was. There were fewer places to hide, and any unexpected movement could be seen instantly. The docking point was not crowded, but there were enough structures and equipment nearby to create partial cover. Camila used them carefully. She timed her final movements with the crew's activity, moving only when their attention shifted away. The distance between her and the exit point felt longer than it actually was. Every second carried the risk of being noticed, but she kept moving forward, refusing to look back. When she finally reached solid ground, she did not stop. She moved away from the yacht quickly but without drawing attention, blending into the limited activity around the docking area. Only when she had created enough distance did she allow herself to slow down. The immediate danger had passed, but the situation was far from over. Her next step was critical. The information she had collected was now her strongest protection. Without it, her experience could be questioned or dismissed. With it, she had something that could not be ignored. She secured herself in a safe location and made contact with authorities, providing only the essential details needed to initiate an investigation. The response was immediate. Given the nature of the evidence and the potential scale of what it revealed, officials acted quickly. The yacht was located and intercepted before it could move beyond reach. Digital systems were seized, and the materials Camila had described were recovered and verified. What had been hidden within that controlled environment began to unfold under official examination. Adrian Al Maktoum's image as a composed and influential businessman started to break apart. The records found on the yacht revealed a network of financial operations that extended across multiple countries. Transactions were routed through complex channels, designed to avoid detection. The yacht itself had been used as a mobile base, allowing sensitive activities to take place outside normal jurisdictional boundaries. Each discovery added weight to the case. Camila's evidence aligned perfectly with what investigators uncovered, confirming that her account was accurate. Her role shifted from a victim of circumstance to a key witness in exposing a larger operation. For Camila, the reality of what had happened settled in slowly. She had entered the situation believing she was stepping into an opportunity, something different from her routine life. Instead, she had found herself inside a controlled environment where her freedom had been quietly taken away. Her ability to observe, adapt, and act had allowed her to escape, but the experience left a lasting impact. In the end, the case became more than just her story. It revealed how easily control could be hidden behind appearances, and how quickly a situation could change when trust was placed in the wrong person. What began as a simple meeting had turned into a carefully managed trap. But it also showed that even in the most controlled situations, awareness and action could break through, and sometimes that is all it takes to expose the truth.